Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 10 of the Diamonds in the Rough podcast. I'm your host, Robert Big Shot Rob Stripe. Hope everybody out there is having a good weekend so far. Happy Sunday to everybody out there. Yesterday is Selection Sunday. It's March Madness. We're going to find out all the teams in the NCAA tournament in a few hours here later today. We got all the conference championship games going on. Selection Sunday tonight at 6 o'clock. We'll find out all the matchups and who's in and who's out of the NCAA tournament. But we'll probably touch on that a little bit later in the show today. We got a great show for you today. Going to go over the Week 13 recap of the Creating Young Minds Undiscovered League. We're going to have some guys from Sideline Sports Network join us later on in the show. Cover some NFL, NBA news. A lot going on with NFL trades, free agency. There was a trade today. We got some NBA news going on. We'll touch on that a little bit later. But let me get right into it here with the Creating Young Minds Undiscovered League Week 13 recap. It's been a while since I recapped some of the games here. Good to see the league, back in action. There were 4 games on the slate this past week. I'll get right into it. The first game of the day, we had the Undiscovered team taking on the Waco Prospects. The Undiscovered team defeats the Waco Prospects 65-33, a 32-point victory by the Undiscovered team. Congratulations on the victory, a big win in that game. I'll get right into the player stats for the Undiscovered team. Tremaine Thomas finished with 9 points, 5 rebounds, 4 steals. Tremaine Thomas is a 6'4", 185-pound guard who played in Partizani, Albania. He's an all-around player. Also for the Undiscovered team, Mike Lenore, who plays with the TBL's Louisville Leopards, finished with 4 points and 8 assists. Mike Lenore is the definition of a true point guard. And in addition to him, my man Jared Jetpack J. Henderson, who we had on the show previously before, he finished with 10 points. He went 5 of 5 from the field. Also added 8 rebounds. Jared Jetpack J. Henderson, shout out to Jetpack J. He's the TBL's Louisville Leopards. Definitely one of the top performers in the Creating Young Minds Undiscovered League. So shout out to Jetpack J. Hope everything is well with you, my man. Also, Lewis Trey Patterson III finished with 16 points. He was also perfect from the field. He went 8 of 8 from the field and added 2 steals. He is also of the TBL's Louisville Leopards. And finally, for the winning team, the Undiscovered team, Chase Winchester, who plays at the University of Nebraska, Kearney, finished with 15 points and 3 rebounds. As for the team that lost this game, the Waco Prospects, they were led by Kahari Buford, a 6'4", 190-pound shooting guard who played in the NBA G League draft of 2018. He's of the University of Tennessee, Martin. He finished with 12 points. Another guy that had a good game was Kyrie Farid, a 6'1", 175-pound point guard of the Creating Young Minds Academy Prep School. He finished with 10 points. And those are the stats for Game 1 of the Week 13 recap. Let's get right into Game 2 here. Game 2, we had the Louisville Black taking on the Phenoms. The Louisville Black defeated the Phenoms by a final score of 74-50. So a nice 24-point win for the Louisville Black. The Louisville Black player stats, they were led by Marcus Brooks. Marcus Brooks had an all-around game, finishing with 12 points, 8 rebounds, 4 steals, and 1 block. Marcus Brooks is a 6'6", 190-pound forward. He plays also with the TBL's Louisville Leopards. Another guy that had a great game was Kevin Booz, who had 16 points, 7 assists, 3 rebounds, and 2 steals. Kevin Booz is a guy who plays hard. He is a 5'10", 180-pound point guard from Lamar University. Other guys that had good games were for Jesse Williams. Jesse Williams finished with 15 points and 6 rebounds. Jesse Williams is a 6'7", 225-pound forward, also of the TBL's Louisville Leopards. And we also had Gabe Hobbs. Gabe Hobbs had 12 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists. Gabe Hobbs is a 6'5", 235-pound small forward who formerly played in South America. So congrats on the great game. Finally, for the winning team, Donathan Daniels had 11 points and 3 rebounds. Donathan Daniels is a 6 foot, 175-pound point guard from Houghton College. He was a second-round draft pick for the TBL's Louisville Leopards. So it looks like this season he'll be playing with the TBL's Louisville Leopards. So congratulations to him on a great game. As for the losing team, the Phenoms, I'll go over their player stats really quickly. Brandon McElvey, a 5'10", 165-pound point guard of the University of Houston, a Cougar, had 8 assists. We also had Aziz Fadika, a 6'8", 225-pound center. He finished with 10 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists. This guy is from Quincy University, and he was a first-round draft pick for the Louisville Leopards. So congratulations to him. He'll be playing for the Louisville Leopards this upcoming season when the TBL Basketball League starts. That's going to be starting up in April. The TBL Basketball League is the 3rd largest pro basketball league in the United States of America. So that will be starting up pretty soon in April after the Creating Young Minds Undiscovered League finishes up. So that was game 2. The Louisville Black again defeated the Phenom 74-50. So another double-digit victory on the slate. Moving on to game 3 here. We had the pros versus the PSC prospects. The PSC prospects from Memphis, Tennessee. The pros defeated the PSC prospects 57-43. So congratulations to the pros on the victory. I'll go through the player stats here for both teams in a moment. First, for the winning team, the pros player stats. CJ Carter, a guy I talked about previously on the show before, finished with 24 points, 7 rebounds, and 1 steal. CJ Carter is a 6'4", 215-pound guard. He formerly played in the NBA with the New York Knicks and also in the NBA's G League with the Texas Legends. So congratulations to him on another great game. We also had Yash Matu, who is an 18-year-old combo guard, point guard / shooting guard. He's 6'5", 195 pounds. He finished with 12 points and 3 steals. Another guy that had a good game was Mike Love, who formerly played in Germany, Alba, overseas. He finished with 13 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 steals. And finally, for the winning team, the pros, we had Dante Smith, a 6'5", 225-pound forward who played overseas, mostly in the Morocco Super League. He finished with 6 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 steals. So congratulations to those men playing on the winning team. As for the losing team here, I'll go over their stats. The PSC prospects from Memphis, Tennessee. Daryl Bowie, a 5'10", 165-pound point guard from Ottawa University. He finished with 13 points, 4 assists, and 4 rebounds. Another guy that had a great game was Quentin Campbell, 6'7", 210-pound small forward / power forward from the University of Southern Mississippi. He also played in Cyprus, Lithuania, and Argentina. He finished with 6 points and 10 rebounds. Another guy that had a great game, decent game, was Devontae Sipling, a 6'7", 225-pound forward, formerly of the University of Mobile in Alabama. He finished with 9 points and 5 rebounds. And finally, for the PSC prospects, William Stanford, a 6'3", 200-pound guard, also from the University of Mobile in Alabama, and also a second-round pick for the Louisville Leopards. He finished with 9 points and 5 rebounds. So, again, congratulations to those guys on a great game despite the loss. And seems like the Louisville Leopards are getting a lot of new players here that I'm mentioning that got drafted onto their team for the upcoming basketball league season. So it should be interesting to see how they do this year with all these new draft picks. But moving right on to the fourth and final game of the day, we had the EA Hoops taking on the Prospects. This was the closest game of the day, the fourth and final game of the day. The EA Hoops defeated the Prospects team 53-45. For the winning team, the EA Hoops, I'll go over some of their stats. Keith Smith, a 6'4", 170-pound, 18-year-old prep school guard. He finished with 19 points. Also, Nick Ineguez, a 6'1", 185-pound, 19-year-old point guard from Northlake College. He finished with 12 points. A guy that I mentioned before, played in the last game, Devontae Sipling. He had 2 points, 10 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. So those were pretty much all the player stats for the winning team, the EA Hoops team. Moving on to the Prospects team that lost, I'll go over a couple of their stats, guys that had good games. Quentin Campbell, who I mentioned before also earlier, he finished with 10 points and 4 rebounds. Terrell Jones, a 6'5", 205-pound guard/forward from the TBL. He finished with 10 points and 3 rebounds. So congratulations to all the winners and losers from the Creating Young Minds Undiscovered League, Week 13. Congratulations to all the players that had great games, and looking forward to covering Week 14 next week. I believe they just played their games on Friday. So I'll have for you a recap of all the games of Week 14 of the Creating Young Minds Undiscovered League next week once I get all the stats and everything together. And, make sure you guys check out next week's show for the Week 14 recap of the Creating Young Minds Undiscovered League. And check out the league on all social media platforms. It's going to be under this video, in the description video on YouTube. So if you subscribe and follow my YouTube channel, you can check out everything having to do with the Creating Young Minds Undiscovered League on all social media platforms. They're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. Shout out to Dr. Shira Ackerman and Dr. Mathis Crowder. They're the co-founders of the Creating Young Minds Undiscovered League, so they're the ones that put this whole league together. So shout out to them, and they're doing a great job with that league and really teaching these young men on and off the court, and giving these guys an opportunity to showcase their skills playing basketball at the professional level, and giving them an opportunity on and off the court. They really do a great job with what they do, and hopefully they could keep this league going. And looking forward to the basketball league season starting soon in April, and more things going on definitely with the Creating Young Minds Undiscovered League and the Louisville Leopards as well. Hopefully, we'll be able to get more different players on the show from the Creating Young Minds Undiscovered League and the TBL as well, and definitely try to get some video highlights of some of the games on the show as well. But you can check that out on their social media. Also go to their website as well. You'll be able to catch highlights and definitely learn more about the players. It's 4:15 now, so should be expecting hopefully some more people coming on the show here soon to talk some NFL, NBA news. A lot going on, with NFL free agency coming up on next Wednesday. So a lot of rumors and stuff going on with NFL trades. We got a lot of NBA news going on. So it's been a busy Sunday. Obviously, NCAA tournament selection Sunday. We'll find out all the teams making the tournament. I was watching a few games earlier. Congratulations to the St. Bonaventure Bonnies, Atlantic 10 champions. So they'll be representing the Atlantic 10 in the NCAA tournament. They get the automatic bid. So shout out to the Bonnies. They're in Allegheny, New York, not too far from where I live, maybe a few hours. Congratulations also to the Colgate Raiders. They punched their ticket to the tournament. They won their conference championship as well. So they'll be in the tournament. So it'll be interesting to see, what teams get in the tournament and what teams don't. It's been kind of a weird year for college basketball, dealing with all the COVID protocols and all. A lot of games had to be canceled, and a lot of teams had to miss games due to COVID. So this year, in the NCAA tournament, we might not see all the normal blue bloods like we see in years past, like the Kansases and the Kentuckys and the Dukes and the North Carolinas and all those teams due to the COVID protocols and what's been going on. You also have the one and done factor. A lot of these guys that go to those big name schools like Kansas, Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, they play 1 year and go straight to the NBA. So, but it's been a tough year dealing with COVID and players missing games and games being postponed due to COVID. I haven't followed the NCAA this year as much as I did, or as much as I have in years past with everything going on with COVID. But hopefully they'll be able to get the tournament in this year, and it'll be all good, because we didn't have a tournament last year. So, they're obviously doing the conference tournaments, and hopefully, they'll be able to get through the NCAA tournament without any problems with COVID, and, we'll be able to crown a national champion this upcoming year. We'll see. It should be an interesting tournament. I don't think there's any one clear-cut favorite to win, the NCAA tournament this year. But we'll see. I mean, me personally, I'm kind of rooting for Michigan. I like what Juwan Howard's done with that Michigan team this year. Also rooting for Georgetown. Patrick Ewing, done a great job with that Georgetown team. Georgetown, they were able to win the Big East tournament over Seton Hall, so they got the automatic bid from the Big East into the NCAA tournament. So congratulations to Georgetown. And it was kind of shocking to me when I heard what happened with Patrick Ewing walking into Madison Square Garden. The security checked his ID, and they didn't know who he was, and he wasn't able to get in the building. As you know, Patrick Ewing is a famous New York Knicks player, played his entire career with the New York Knicks, and it was kind of shocking that they ID'd him and didn't know who he was when he's pretty much going back to the building he played in his entire career, Madison Square Garden, and they weren't able to know who he was. I mean, the security guard working there, must have been new, must have been a young kid that didn't really know anything about basketball. That's why he checked Patrick Ewing pretty carefully and said, we don't know who you are. But Patrick Ewing's a pretty big guy. I mean, you can recognize that guy pretty much anywhere. He's so big, he's like 7 feet 1. So he's a guy, you can recognize pretty much anywhere. But it's definitely, understandable. When you're a security officer, I used to work security. You have to do your job no matter what. So, no matter who's coming into the building, whether it's a famous person or not, you have to still, do your job and check that person's credentials to make sure they're allowed into the venue. So, I'm not mad at that security officer for doing his job, but Patrick Ewing was definitely upset that the guy didn't know who he was, or the people in Madison Square Garden, some of the people there didn't know who he was. But it's okay. The guy was just doing his job, what he was told to do, and that's pretty much it. You can't hate the guy for that, for just doing his job. I know security sometimes can give people a hard time, but the guy was just doing his job, and that's what he's supposed to do. So yeah, it's about 4:19 now. We'll give guys a little while to get situated. Hopefully we can get some guests on the show today, talk some NFL, NBA news. I already went over the recap of the Creating Young Minds Undiscovered League, Week 13. So we'll definitely get into some NFL, NBA news soon. A lot going on. We'll definitely try to touch on everything going on with the NFL and the NBA. As you know, Dak Prescott signed his big new contract with the Dallas Cowboys. It was 4 years, $160 million. We'll talk more about that. Also, Tom Brady's 1 year contract extension to stay in Tampa Bay with the Buccaneers. We'll touch on that as well. We'll also talk about pending NFL free agency coming up. NFL free agency starts March 17th at 4 p.m. Eastern time. I believe that's when guys can officially start signing their deals. But I believe tomorrow, Monday at noon, is when they can really start talking with the free agents and really signing. And, but Wednesday, it won't be till it's like really official. So yeah, there's a lot of free agents out there on the market. Some of the notable free agents out there include, running back Aaron Jones, wide receiver Kenny Golladay, outside linebacker Bud Dupree. Also got Juju Smith-Schuster and T.Y. Hilton, to name a few. There's definitely some other good free agents out there, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see, where all these guys, end up this upcoming season. Other than that, the NBA All-Star game was last Sunday. I didn't really think much of the All-Star game, last Sunday. I thought it was kind of a boring All-Star game. LeBron's team dominated Durant's team pretty badly. Curry and Lillard, those guys went off shooting three-pointers, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, got the All-Star game MVP for LeBron's team, going a perfect 16 for 16 from the field. But it was kind of a boring All-Star game. I guess having COVID and everything this year, they kind of put it together last second. I didn't think too much of the NBA dunk contest. I thought it didn't live up to what it's lived up to in years past. Congratulations to Anthony Simons of the Portland Trailblazers for winning the dunk contest. The three-point shootout was really the best contest to me of All-Star Weekend, as well as the NBA Skills Challenge. The three-point shootout, you had Steph Curry going up against Mike Conley. Mike Conley, really impressed me in that three-point shootout. He almost beat Steph. He only lost to Steph by 1 point. Steph beat him out at the end, 28-27, was able to win the three-point shootout. But I was really rooting for Mike Conley to win that three-point shootout. I thought Mike Conley performed very well in that three-point shootout contest and almost won it. And, congratulations to Mike Conley on being a first-time All-Star. He did a great job, with the three-point shootout and, playing in the All-Star game. And then, the skills challenge, it was, again, a battle of big men. Again, you had Nikolai Vucevic versus Domantas Sabonis. Probably, a lot of people thought it would end up being Luka Doncic versus Chris Paul, or possibly Robert Covington making it into the finals. But, those big men in the skills challenge seem to have got the hang of that skills challenge. And, the last couple of years, it's been big men, dominating the skills challenge, getting to the end and finding a way to win the skills challenge. A lot of gifted, a lot of athletic bigs now in the NBA today, and these guys are performing well in the skills challenge. Domantas Sabonis did a great job in the skills challenge, as well as Nikolai Vucevic. Congratulations to Domantas Sabonis on winning the skills challenge. He did a great job. So congratulations to him. And then, just looking back at the All-Star game, LeBron, he barely played at all. He did a great job picking his team, though. I'll tell you that much. Steph Curry and Damian Lillard shot lights out, shooting three-point shots from half court. And I really thought both of those guys together should have shared the MVP instead of Giannis Antetokounmpo. But, I can understand them giving Giannis the MVP. He did go a perfect 16 for 16 from the field, and he also made some nice three-point shots. He had pretty much a lot of easy shots, a lot of dunks, a lot of layups. Nobody really plays any defense in the All-Star game, so it was pretty easy for Giannis to get whatever he wants. And congratulations to him on winning the All-Star game MVP. I'm kind of glad that LeBron didn't play too much in the All-Star game. We barely saw him at all after like the first quarter. I think LeBron just wanted to pretty much just get his rest and take it easy. He's already won the All-Star Game MVP before, but he did do a great job putting together that team with Luka Doncic, Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Those guys, they did a great job, and they raised a lot of money for historical Black colleges. So overall, the All-Star Weekend was okay. I mean, it wasn't bad. I mean, obviously it's been better in years past, and you wish you could have had the fans there, but due to COVID, they had to kind of throw together a little last second thing there in Atlanta, and they were able to throw something together there. So I mean, it's better than nothing. But moving on to the second half of the season, the second half of the NBA season's officially started, and we got the trade deadline coming up March 25th. As many of you already know, Blake Griffin was a big name mentioned out there in the trade market, a free agent. He got bought out by the Detroit Pistons. He recently signed with the Brooklyn Nets. So Blake Griffin is now a Brooklyn Net. We also got some other guys out there that are potential, that are free agents and obviously could be traded anytime soon. Andre Drummond and also, LaMarcus Aldridge are two guys that could be on the move any day now. It's just a matter of where they land, and we'll get more into that. We'll talk about their landing spots, where they might land once we get some guys here on the show, and obviously we'll give our thoughts on the second half of the NBA season, the playoffs, and any finals predictions. Who we think is going to get to the finals, and who has the best chance to get to the finals and win it all, and who's going to make the playoffs, all that, the seeding, everything having to do with that. But yeah, again, I hope everybody out there is having a good weekend. It's good to be back. Haven't done a show, in a couple weeks. Good to be back covering the Creating Young Minds Undiscovered League. I didn't do a show a couple weeks. If you guys like to read football articles, you can definitely check out my work on the East West Football Network. I post the links on, my Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. I could post it under my videos as well. But if you're a big fan of football, definitely check out the East West Football Network. Those guys do a great job covering all aspects of football, whether it be the draft, the fantasy football, trades, pretty much anything, all the divisions, all the teams, that they really do a great job covering all aspects of football during the season and in the off season. So shout out to the East West Football Network, everybody working there, all the writers, all the guys that do the podcast. Shout out to all you guys out there working hard and putting in the work to make the East West Football Network what it is. Yeah, so it's almost 4:30 now. Hopefully, we'll be having some guys from Sideline Sports Network join us here in a few minutes to get on the show, and definitely talk some NBA, NFL news. There was a trade today in the NFL between the Miami Dolphins and the Houston Texans. The Miami Dolphins sent Shaq Lawson and a 6th-round pick to the Houston Texans in return for this guy, Bryant, I had to look up his name, McKinney, and a 7th-round pick. So the Dolphins trade defensive lineman Shaq Lawson to the Texans and get in return a linebacker to fill the void of Kyle Van Noy, who they released. So that'll be interesting. Other NFL news, I believe the Chicago Bears just cut ties with Mitch Trubisky, who had been their quarterback the last couple of years. He was a top draft pick out of North Carolina a few years ago. He was their top draft pick out of North Carolina a few years ago. Went 2nd overall. So I believe the Chicago Bears are cutting ties with Mitch Trubisky and moving off him. So it looks like the Bears are going to be going all in on either getting Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. If they which of those guys they get. I know the Bears. It's been a long time for that organization since they've had a quarterback. They haven't had a good a real franchise quarterback going back to Sid Luckman, a guy that I don't really know much about. They last had a really top quarterback when they won the Super Bowl back in 1985 with Jay McMahon, but they also had that great defense that definitely helped them win the Super Bowl back then. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the Bears do and what they have to give up to get either of those guys, whether it's Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson. they're going to have to definitely give up a lot to get either of those guys. So, we'll definitely see what happens moving forward. But yeah, just waiting for some people to hop on the show here. If not, I'll just keep talking and give my thoughts more on what's going on with the NFL and the NBA news. Sorry, guys, just got to charge my laptop here. Battery's getting kind of low. I'm sure you know how that is. All right, sorry about that. Hopefully we can get some people on the show, talk a little NBA, NFL news. If not, I'll just keep going and give you guys my thoughts and close out the show. I'll try to make it too long a show today. Sorry for the dead air, guys. Just trying to get people. Waiting for some people to come on the show here. I already talked about the Creating Young Minds Undiscovered League. Told you what we'll be talking about with the NFL and NBA shortly. But just hoping we can get a couple guests on the show to get their thoughts and really get a little bit more into detail with what's going on with the current NFL and NBA news. So we'll see what happens. Just waiting to see if anybody is coming on the show. If not, I'll just get into it and just give you guys my thoughts on the NFL and NBA news that's been current from the last week or so, and any new news that's going on. Give another minute or so, and just get into it. Can't really waste too much more time. Not really good to have dead air, so try to just get into things, keep it going. If anybody jumps on, they jump on. If not, it's okay. All right, it doesn't look like anybody's coming on. If they do, we'll just add them to the broadcast. If not, it's all good. Starting off the big NFL news this week was Dak Prescott's big new contract to stay with the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott signed a 4-year, $160 million contract to stay in Dallas. The contract's max value is $164 million. Of that, he gets $126 million in guaranteed money. The deal also includes a no-trade clause and a no-tag provision. Pretty much the deal averages out to $42 million a year over the first 3 seasons, with $75 million in the first season and a $66 million signing bonus. So Dak definitely got paid, got a big contract. Hopefully we'll see if he lives up to that contract. He has done well as the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, but he is coming off a gruesomely bad injury. And I believe the Cowboys didn't want to put the franchise tag on him again or risk losing him for nothing. So they were forced to sign him and forced to, overpay for him. Jerry Jones said it in the press conference. I've overpaid for a lot of things in my life, and I don't mind overpaying. But we'll see how this affects the rest of the team, moving forward, because that Dallas Cowboys defense last year was one of the worst defenses in the league. And you can't put all that pressure on Dak to have to play comeback games, and have to, play from behind all the time and have to be in shootouts and throw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, or 300 some yards and 3 touchdowns, or 500 yards. Can Dak put up those kind of numbers? Yes, he can. But, he already has enough pressure being, the Dallas Cowboys quarterback. And, the Dallas Cowboys have always been, known as America's team. And he already has a lot of pressure being the Dallas Cowboys quarterback because, the Cowboys are worth the most money out of all the teams in the NFL and probably the most popular team in the NFL. So he already has that pressure. And then, you add the pressure of him signing that big contract. And, if you're not able to get some type of defense around him where he doesn't have to, put up gaudy numbers all the time, I don't know if they're going to be able to do that because they just paid Dak a lot of money. They also might have to rebuild, that offensive line. Those offensive linemen they have now are getting, kind of old. The offensive line hasn't looked good the last couple of years. Another guy that, definitely has to have a make or break year for the Dallas Cowboys is Zeke Elliott. Zeke Elliott, I think, has to have a great year for the Dallas Cowboys, to be successful and be able to make the playoffs. Zeke is coming off a bad year, and Zeke needs to have a good year to take some of the pressure off of Dak, so the Cowboys offense can run more smoothly. So we'll see what happens with that as far as if Zeke can have a good year, and we'll see if Dak can live up to that contract. It's a big contract. He's coming off a bad injury. We'll see what happens. I hope he's able to stay healthy this year and have a bounce back year. The Cowboys should be favored in the division, which is called the NFC least by Skip Bayless. But the Washington football team will have another good team this year. That defense is very good with Chase Young. All right, we got another guy jumping on here. Let me get this guy on the show. What's going on, Brice?
What's up, Robert? Happy to be on.
How's it going, man?
It's going all right, man. How about you?
Doing all right. We're just discussing Dak Prescott's big new contract to stay in Dallas. He got a 4-year, $160 million deal. I was just going over some of the terms of the contract. Now let me ask you, based on what Dak has done in Dallas so far, do you think he's worth this amount of money, and do you think he's going to be able to live up to this big contract that he just signed?
Well, if you go off what he's done and everything, then no. Just because, to pay that kind of money to somebody, you would have thought they would have done something big like win the Super Bowl or even winning an MVP. Something, a major accomplishment where Dak doesn't really have one at that point in his career just yet. So I think right now you can say no. Now he can change that clearly if he gets the Cowboys to a Super Bowl or maybe he has an MVP-like season, or he, even if you can get a team to the Super Bowl, and we know Dak is a big part of that, then I could sit here and say, okay, I guess he's living up to it. But overall, we probably feel like until he wins the Super Bowl, especially in Dallas, in the brand of Dallas, it's going to be hard to justify him getting this deal. But at the same time, Dak's also being smart, because I believe in about 4 years, the TV deal is up, which is how long his contract is. So even if we don't feel like Dak deserves the money he got now, if he keeps the Cowboys relevant for the next few years, he could potentially get even a bigger contract, not just from the Cowboys, maybe from another team down the line, obviously because the quarterback market is shifting up in money, but just because also when there's no more money coming into the league, that means bigger contracts. So, I can't hate the guy for getting his money, but I'm a person who feels like, okay, yeah, they probably overpaid Dak. I'm sure a lot of people probably agree with that, but he can obviously change that narrative if he can get the Cowboys to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. I think there's a lot of pressure on Dak. I know when he signed that contract, a lot of people were saying it's pretty much Super Bowl or bust for the Cowboys. But to win a Super Bowl, you can't just rely on your quarterback. You got to have the pieces around your quarterback. And the Cowboys have had one of the worst defenses in the NFL for some time now. So rebuilding that defense and definitely rebuilding that offensive line. Not to mention Zeke Elliott needing to come back and have a bounce back year. And try to regain his title as the top running back in the league, or one of the top running backs in the league, is essential for the Cowboys to be able to not only get to the playoffs, but to be able to make a deep playoff run. Because we're talking about an organization here that hasn't been to an NFC Championship game since, what was it, 1995 or 1996? So it's possible that they have all the tools and everything to get there. It's just like bringing that chemistry together. It's year 2 of the Mike McCarthy era, so just bringing that team together, getting some offensive linemen, rebuilding that defense. We'll see what they do in the draft. We'll see what they do in free agency. Okay, they locked Dak up, for 4 years, so they're good with their quarterback. Now let's see what they put around Dak, and hopefully, Dak can make it through the season healthy. The Cowboys should be the favorite in the NFC East next year, and we'll see what happens. But moving off from Dak, I wanted to talk about another guy who got a contract extension. And there's no surprise here that he took less money to try to keep the team around him, is Tom Brady. Tom Brady signed the 4-year extension, which really turned into a 1-year contract extension with 3 voidable years. I believe the contract is 1 year for $25 million. That frees up about $19 million in salary cap space. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are able to re-sign players like Ryan Suckup, Rob Gronkowski, Ndamukong Suh, Shaq Barrett, Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown. Now, let me ask you, what do you think about Tom Brady taking less money again? And what do you think the chances are that the Bucs are able to re-sign most of these guys and bring back the same team that they had this past year from when they won the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think, what Tom did is typical Tom Brady. He's always been team first, a guy not afraid to make a cut to his own salary to help keep a player that he feels like is very important to the team. So that's not surprising that he did that. I think this deal was more for Shaq Barrett out of all those players, just because I feel like he's their main free agent priority for Tampa Bay in general. Because even with him restructuring the deal, I still feel like depending on whatever everybody's willing to take in terms of contracts, they're still going to have some tight issues with trying to maybe get an Antonio Brown or Leonard Fournette back. Last time I checked, I think I want to say Tampa was at that line they need to be at to be under the salary cap. So it's because, obviously a lot of teams are over the salary cap by a lot when the cap went down, but he really helped with that. But I think their biggest thing right now is if they can get Shaq Barrett back, I think that's going to be big for them, because just to have that pass rush up front, because I don't think Suh at this point in his career is going to demand huge money like he used to. So I don't look at that as a concern. Guys like Suh, guys like Antonio Brown, even, unless a team really is just like, you know what, I think Antonio Brown can be that receiver for us. I don't see a team really going out of their way for Antonio Brown. Plus, again, I think Antonio Brown wants to play with Tom. So he may be willing to take less to come back to Tampa Bay as well. Biggest person, like I said, overall is Shaq Barrett, because he wants to come back to Tampa Bay, but he wants his money. And I think Tom Brady taking this cut really helps them, put them in a better position to now offer him a deal that may be more around what he's willing to take. Because if you have a player who wants to come back, he may want you could maybe say just a hypothetical number. He may want 12 million, and then Tampa may offer him 10, and he may take 10 just because, well, this is the team I do want to play for. We won a Super Bowl, and I do want to run it back. So that's just, I think Tom just put his team in a position again to make sure they can get the key players back, and they can make another run at it next year.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. The Bucs already locked up Levante David, the linebacker. He re-signed with the team on a 2-year, $25 million deal. They also placed the franchise tag on wide receiver Chris Godwin. So, they locked up Levante David. So that's one guy they already got under contract. And then it's only a matter of time before they probably sign Chris Godwin. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with Shaq Barrett. But there's a lot of teams out there also that they want Shaq Barrett's services. And we'll see what happens. But, yeah, Tom Brady taking less money and the Bucs having $19 million in salary cap space definitely helps them out and definitely improves their chances of getting back to the Super Bowl next year and having a chance to repeat. So we'll see what happens with that. Moving on, NFL free agency starts March 17th, 4 Eastern time. That's when the guys are allowed to officially sign. I believe tomorrow, Monday at noon. Yeah, tomorrow at noon, guys can start talking and officially agreeing to terms with the teams. And then Wednesday they officially, sign their contracts. We got a lot of big free agents out here on the market. Some notable free agents, include running back Aaron Jones. We got wide receiver Kenny Galladay. We got outside linebacker Bud Dupree, Juju Smith-Schuster, T.Y. Hilton. There's a lot of big names out there. Like, give me your thoughts on where you think some of these guys end up.
Yeah. So I actually have news on Aaron Jones. I don't know because it kind of happened while your show has been going on that he actually re-signed with Green Bay. So he'll be coming back to the Packers. So he was a big fish in the pool, top running back clearly in this year's class, but he's going to be returning to Green Bay. But in terms of everybody else, though, I think guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, he's an interesting receiver to me. It kind of depends on how you view him. He didn't have a terrible season, but he didn't have that number one receiver type season you would like for him to have in that role. And so I think teams are going to be interested. I think he's not going back to Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh is going to move on from him. And I think there's many teams that potentially could go after him in free agency. Maybe you could see Miami looking for another receiver beside Devontae Parker. I said maybe Detroit. Obviously, since they're letting go of Kenny Galladay, you may want to look for a replacement there. And he's maybe a team that I think he fits better as a number 2. And so any team that may feel like they need that second guy, maybe Arizona potentially with DeAndre Hopkins, depending what Larry Fitzgerald does, you maybe put Juju in that situation. I think that might be a good spot for him. And then, if we're talking about maybe a guy like Kenny Galladay, obviously another receiver, Lions went on, said, okay, we're not going to bring you back. Again, Miami's a team that has shown interest. The Eagles are a team that may show interest as well. So I definitely expect movement from him. I'm sure multiple teams are going to be interested in him as well. And honestly, one thing I want to say about the free agency class too is just there's a lot of good players this year, but just because of salary cap, because a lot of people had to get cut. Jared Cook, tight end, pretty good tight end for the Saints the last couple of years. He's out there. A lot of teams may need a tight end. If I think New England should jump on him because they don't have any tight ends, especially with running back with Cam Newton. And obviously, I think Cam would do really well with a tight end. When he had success in Carolina, he had Greg Olsen. And so it'd be good for him to have a safety blanket like that there. The Chargers just cut Casey Hayward, a former Pro Bowl cornerback. He's going to be in free agency. Maybe you're a team that needs to prove the back end. I think he's a big fit. Again, the Eagles, obviously, since secondary has been an issue the last couple of years for them. Any team that needs that second guy, maybe the Falcons, since they need help in the secondary as well, going beside their last year first round pick, AJ Terrell. There's just so many guys, really, Robert, that I think it's going to change teams, and there's a lot of good players this year. So I definitely expect free agency to be very active, but I don't expect huge money just because, obviously, cap. So you're going to see a lot of 1 to 2 year deals to me in this year's free agency class.
Yeah, definitely. The cap went down. The salary cap this year for the 2021 season is down to it's $182.5 million. So yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And then obviously Aaron Jones off the books, re-signs with Green Bay. But yeah, going back to Juju, Yeah, I think Juju would definitely. I look at Juju like he's more of like a number two.
Mm.
He, he had a lot of his success in Pittsburgh was when Antonio Brown was the number one. I don't think he's that number one guy. He's more of like a number two. So him going to Arizona would definitely be a good fit. Teaming up with DeAndre Hopkins, Dolphins are another good fit. The Dolphins need a slot receiver. Miami Dolphins, that's my team. Another place that you didn't mention that I could see him going is maybe the Los Angeles Chargers. They have Keenan Allen, who's getting old. He's kind of injury prone. I don't know what they're going to do with Mike Williams. As you know, Juju is a LA guy. He played his college ball at USC. So I could see him definitely going back to the LA area and playing in California. But, yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, Miami, Arizona, possibly Detroit, the Chargers. I don't think he'll go to the Rams because the Rams already have receivers in Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, so they're good. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting. You really just never know with these guys. Sometimes, like I thought J.J. Watt would ended up going to Green Bay or maybe Pittsburgh or maybe Buffalo, and he kind of shocked me going to Arizona now. I know his old teammate DeAndre Hopkins was there, and DeAndre definitely convinced him. But sometimes, like these guys make decisions not just based on football, but based on family. It's about their family. Like J.J. Watt liked Arizona. He liked the weather there and everything. So that's definitely basing it on your family definitely helps. And that's one reason why Tom wanted to go to Tampa Bay when he left New England, because of the weather factor, and he wanted to do what's best for his family. So these guys don't always make the best football move. They make the move that's best for their family. And obviously some of them take the money, but these guys they're gonna take they're gonna do what's best, not just football wise, but family wise.
Yeah, definitely. You're gonna probably see that a lot with some guys, especially like older guys. Since JJ was older, you don't know how long. We don't know how long JJ might want to play. He may say, you know what, Arizona's not a bad place to retire. So if my contract ends, it's like, hey, I'm comfortable with where I am. So that also could play a factor, especially in the older veteran players.
Yeah, definitely. We had a big trade today in the NFL. The Miami Dolphins traded defensive lineman Shaq Lawson to the Houston Texans for the guy McKinney, the linebacker. I forgot his name. I can look that up. But yeah, the Dolphins trade Shaq Lawson to the Texans, get the linebacker McKinney in return. This move right here just tells me that the Dolphins are trying to get Shaq Barrett on that defensive line. The Dolphins are definitely going to try to go after Shaq Barrett. So we'll see what happens with that. The Dolphins also traded earlier in the week. They got Isaiah Wilson from the Tennessee Titans, a guy that was troubled there. So they got him on the offensive line. Also today, the Chicago Bears decided to, I think, cut ties with Mitch Trubisky. I wanted to ask you about the Bears, because the Bears are definitely an interesting team, and they're going hard for Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson, and the Bears are willing to pretty much trade the house for either of these guys. Which quarterback do you like more going to the Bears? Is it Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson? Which guy you think is more likely to end up in Chicago?
More likely, I think it's Russell, and that's just because I feel like with Houston right now, they're still on this, we're not trading Deshaun Watson. And so that means they're not entertaining calls, where Seattle is taking calls. And I'm sure Seattle's taking calls. And Chicago probably wants to make a move soon. There's a lot of pressure in that organization. They feel like, listen, Matt Nagy's in his last year if we don't win. The general manager is going to be fired if we don't win. We have to get a quarterback. Because from a roster perspective, Chicago's not that bad from a roster perspective. They still have a pretty good defense. And they have, I think, above average to decent weapons on the offensive end. The biggest thing that people feel like has held back Chicago is the quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky, Nick Foles. So if they were able to potentially get a guy like Russell Wilson, I think that would be big for them. So that's why, and I think since they're taking calls and they seem open, since there's that power struggle going on in Seattle right now with Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson, I think there may be a chance that Chicago really could pull this off. And I think they're going to try everything in their power to pull it off. I think it'd be a good fit. I think if Russell goes to Chicago, we have to look at them, if not favorites, co-favorites with Green Bay in the NFC. And I think, it'll be interesting because it's like we kind of view Chicago as like a tough town, fans are, rabid, like you have to really be a certain kind of guy. And Russell's kind of this nice guy, just this smile on his face. You don't feel like maybe personalities match, but then you hear that Russell has interest in the market. And I think maybe he feels like the change in mentality isn't just with the city, but also with the team. He may feel like, hey, with Chicago, maybe I'm able to do more than I'm able to do in Seattle right now. That could be going under also his decision-making, why he's considering them. But with Chicago being desperate right now, if they offer like 5 first-round picks and whatever else they decide to attach to that deal, I definitely think that's the most likely deal to happen. And I also think Russell's the better fit also as well.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see what happens. Either way, the Bears are going to have to definitely get a quarterback if they want to compete in that division, because you're dealing with Aaron Rodgers, who you can't seem to beat. And, the Lions, it's going to be interesting to see what they look like with Jared Goff. And, yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them. And obviously the Minnesota Vikings with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is still a good serviceable quarterback. So to be able to win in that division, you're going to need a quarterback. You're going to need a franchise quarterback. And the Bears really haven't had a franchise quarterback since going back to way back in the day when they had Sid Luckman. And then after that, 85 Bears obviously had Jim McMahon. But the Bears, they definitely need a quarterback. I thought Mitch Trubisky might be the guy, but obviously he wasn't. And, yeah, Chicago is a great city. It's one of the larger cities in the United States. It's a popular city. It is a tough town. I used to live down in Miami. I remember I worked security for the Dolphins. I saw the Bears play the Dolphins down in Miami. Those Bears fans, man, they travel well. They're hardcore fans, like the Monsters of the Midway. Like they're like the Eagles fans. They're like the Giants fans, the Jets fans. They're tough fans. So I think Russell Wilson going there could be a good fit. It would be interesting. Russell has to also consider, his wife as well. He's married to Ciara, who was a singer. So maybe she's looking to, resurrect her career. So maybe, I don't know, go into Atlanta or Miami or possibly, Las Vegas would be another, option for Russ. If I was the Seattle Seahawks, I would not want Russell Wilson in the same conference. I would trade him out of the conference. So if you're going to trade him, I would get him out of the NFC and try to trade him to Vegas and try to possibly, get Derek Carr in return. I've heard that's been mentioned, but I know John Gruden is pretty high on Derek Carr, so that'll be interesting. And then if I'm the Houston Texans, I don't want Deshaun Watson in the AFC. I want that guy out of the conference. So I would definitely try to trade Deshaun to Chicago and get him out of the conference, so I don't have to worry about playing him in the regular season or possibly the playoffs. So I mean, both these teams, the Seahawks and the Texans, if they trade their quarterbacks, they're going to do what's best for them. And I know for a fact Deshaun Watson will not be in Houston next year because he's already stated it publicly that he will hold out and he won't play. But with Russell Wilson, there's a chance Russell could stay in Seattle if they find a way to work things out and fix the offensive line. It's hard to see Russell Wilson in any other uniform but a Seahawks uniform. I mean, because he just fits Seattle so well, and he's very well liked there. So it would be tough to see Russ anywhere else but Seattle. But it would be interesting to see if he would end up with the Bears or possibly the Raiders or some other team. But we'll see what happens. But we'll know in the coming days once the free agency starts, and we got the NFL draft coming up in April. A lot of prospects out there. The Seahawks GM was looking at Trey Lance's pro day recently, and the Patriots were also at Trey Lance's pro day. This is a guy that a lot of teams are targeting, especially the Patriots and the Seahawks. So we'll see what happens with those guys. Another guy that just signed a big deal was obviously Cam Newton signed a 1-year, $14 million deal. I want to get your thoughts on Cam staying in New England for another year, and how do you think he's going to do this upcoming season?
I'm actually one of the few people, I guess, who actually like this move. I think one thing we forget about New England is because we've had Brady for so long, so they've never had to deal with that. Plus, and then whoever else has played for the Patriots at quarterback have been there for a couple of years before they stepped on the field. The New England offense is probably considered the most complex offense in all of the NFL. There's a reason why almost half the players don't work in that offense, especially receivers, because it's a very complex offense, which is why it's so effective. It's one of the reasons why I think Miami moved off Chad O'Shea after the first year, especially with new guys too. Like, do we really want to put that offense on them? And I think you got to think about Cam. When he signed, there was no offseason. He just got in there for training camp. You have no wide receivers, literally, no tight ends. And you're asking him week 1 to play and automatically be Cam of old, or at least a semblance of that. And I was just like, that was unrealistic. And then I think when COVID hit him, that threw him off. And I think that kind of messed with Cam a little bit too. And I think the way we saw Cam end the season, we thought, oh, he's washed up, he's finished. But I think getting a second year in the system, everybody says the quarterback takes off in the second year. Getting the opportunity to actually have an off season, work with the guys. Hopefully we expect New England to upgrade around him. That would tremendously help. We've seen them, they got Trent Brown, they got Marcus Cannon today. They are trying to upgrade the offensive line. The Patriots were one of the best teams in rushing last year, clearly because Cam was a big part of that. But, they're still going to be one able to run the football. And then if you prove what's around him on the offensive end, people forget New England defensively was still a top 10 defense last year with like 5-6 opt-outs. And now all those guys are coming back. So I think we'll see a better Cam. We'll see a more comfortable Cam. Now, I still expect them to probably still go after a quarterback, but now it's not as dire because it's like we have Cam. We don't have to go and trade for a big-time guy. Maybe if they want to draft a guy in the second or third round that they want to sit behind Cam for a year and develop, they can do that. And I think Cam's going to have a bounce-back year. I don't think we're going to ever get MVP Cam, but I think we can get a solid Cam. Even if Cam has a minimal year, if he 20 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, like again, hypothetically throwing out a number, it's like that doesn't seem like a lot, especially in today's NFL, but that's better. You see improvement, and that's all you really want to see from Cam. So I think this is a good move for Cam. He gets another year to be comfortable, gets another year in the system. And I think New England as a team this year may be the surprise team in the AFC this year who sneaks back into the playoffs after basically missing it for the first time literally since Brady hasn't played, or ever since the Matt Castle year.
Yeah, definitely make some good points there. I'm kind of 50-50 on Cam. I definitely see why the Patriots would re-sign him to another year. This past season wasn't a normal year dealing with COVID. Cam got COVID. He didn't look the same after he got COVID. A lot of opt-outs, a lot of injuries. Despite all that, the Patriots didn't have such a bad year. They went 7-9. They beat the Chargers 45-0. They almost beat Buffalo. Here in Buffalo, where I live now, if it weren't for that Cam Newton fumble at the end, they could have beat the Bills. That was an interesting game. Bill Belichick's defense always gives Josh Allen's fits as well as other young quarterbacks and rookie quarterbacks. So the Patriots, aren't that far off. And, you got to see what you have in Cam. You got to give him another chance. Julian Edelman will be back, get some weapons, obviously draft another quarterback behind him, have him learn from Cam. I know the Patriots are interested in Trey Lance. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I was thinking maybe the Patriots, it's possible that if Cam doesn't work out this year, they may try to trade, maybe to try to get Jimmy Garoppolo back. But, I don't know if that's going to happen or how they're going to work that out because, I was thinking possibly, the San Francisco 49ers would be interested in Deshaun Watson. And maybe if the 49ers got Deshaun Watson, they could do a 3-team deal with the Texans, 49ers, and Patriots where, Jimmy Garoppolo would get sent back to New England. The 49ers would get Deshaun Watson, and the Texans would get, somebody else at quarterback. I don't know who, but that would be interesting. But I think the 49ers are going to stick with Jimmy G, even though he's been injured. He did get him to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. So I think they trust Jimmy G. They think Jimmy G has what it takes to be their quarterback moving forward. I know Bill Belichick really likes Jimmy G a lot. He was kind of forced to trade him because Brady didn't want him there, and Robert Kraft didn't want him as well. So he was kind of forced to do that. But I could see Jimmy G ended up going back to New England. Maybe in the future, it might not be this year. But yeah, for the Patriots, they got to give Cam one more year, see what he has. This is going to be a different year. You won't be dealing with COVID. He'll have some weapons around him. Guys will be back. So yeah, the Patriots should be good. They have a decent defense. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how the Patriots look this year, and they have a bounce back year. Now I see you got your little Atlanta Falcons helmet back there. So you're a big Falcons fan. Like, what do you make of the Falcons moving forward here? Before we move on, we'll talk a little NBA and wrap up the show.
I think it's kind of it's going to be an interesting year for us this year. I think we we're a team that we have talent, obviously only on the offensive end. We were in a lot of shootouts last year. We are going through a change in culture. With the previous coach with Dan Quinn, obviously a lot of blown leads, a lot of meltdowns, and people wonder those types of things. How, especially with Matt and Julio being our main players, does that stick with them? Does that stick with guys who were around for those moments? And bringing in Arthur Smith, who some people are up and down on. Some people feel like, oh, he's only as good because he had Derrick Henry. But then some people say, well, look what he did with Ryan Tannehill. It's all, there are a lot of different things. But I think this year, I really come into this offseason, I don't know what's going to happen with this. Like, I can't sit here and be like, yeah, I know we're going to be a playoff team, or yeah, we're going to be bad. Because I just feel like with this team, it just honestly depends on the type of moves they make and how they construct the team, because we obviously have most of our holes on the defensive end, but at the same time, we're also, again, one of the teams who are over the cap. We're still trying to restructure to get under it. We're gonna have to take that free agency approach of value over, basically, quantity, because, hey, we don't have the money to pay big time free agents. We just have to pay guys who are looking to maybe still prove to themselves, or guys who are willing to take less, 1-2 year deals probably, and just hope that they're going to be good enough to fill in coaching. The coaching is going to be good enough this year, because I feel like coaching has been an issue for us the last couple of years. Inconsistency. One year the offense is great, defense is bad. Next year the defense is good, offense takes a step back. We need consistency on both ends, and I think potentially we could, obviously Tampa Bay's the king of the NFC South right now. Nobody knows what's going to happen with the Saints, with everything. And Drew hasn't even announced his retirement yet. And the Panthers, a lot of people feel like have that potential with the young team they have to maybe take another step next year. So, I mean, we could finish from a range of 2 to 4 to me. It just really depends on what they move. But I'm confident in what we do. I'm really confident. I'm really excited about the hirings of Terry Fernat from the Saints, and then Arthur Smith. And I think it'll be interesting to see how we look this year, having an offensive guy as head coach. Because I still think offensively, we're still going to be fine. I just think if our defense can be middle of the pack, I think we're going to be in a lot of football games, and I think that maybe we'd be able to make some noise next year in the NFC.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. It's been tough sledding for the Falcons ever since that Super Bowl loss to the Patriots. They haven't really been the same. That game, they were up 28-3 in that game, and I just think the Falcons. And it just hasn't been the same since then. That seems to be hanging on the team for a while. I know as a Falcons fan, that's got to be painful. I don't know if you can ever forget about that, but hopefully, the Falcons can get back to being a playoff team and get back to being good again. I mean, they have a good offense. Matt Ryan's been a great quarterback. They've had good weapons. Hopefully, Julio Jones can stay healthy. Calvin Ridley. Is Gurley coming back next year? Is he under contract? I think he's a free agent, right?
I think he's still under contract, but I expect them to move on. Unless if you bring Gurley back, he's more of a specialist back, short yardage, goal line. He's not a guy you could say, hey, you're the main running back and carry us. Yeah.
Atlanta's definitely a great city. I definitely like to see the Falcons, get back to the playoffs and do big things. They've been great for a while. Just that Super Bowl loss just seemed to bite them, and they just haven't been the same. But there's other teams that have dealt with the same thing. Carolina Panthers with Cam. When they got to the Super Bowl, Cam hasn't been the same since. So that Super Bowl hangover is definitely a tough thing to deal with. But we'll see how the Falcons do this upcoming season. All right, moving on. I wanted to discuss some NBA news. We got the trade deadline coming up March 25th. There hasn't really been too many moves as of yet. Blake Griffin signed with the Brooklyn Nets. What are your thoughts moving forward on Blake Griffin signing with the Nets? Do you think it's a good move, a bad move for the Nets? Do you think they're trying to stack the deck too much? Are they doing all this too much just to try to compete with LeBron and the Lakers? What do you think?
I think it's a good move. I think it gives them another option as a small ball 5. I think Blake at this point in his career, he's kind of changed his game. Before his career, early in his career, was based off athleticism, dunking, things of that nature. That's what we knew Blake Griffin for. Now he's more of a jump shooter, jump mid-range, can shoot the 3. He doesn't have a dunk this year yet. People think that's going to change very quickly with Brooklyn. But I think he's a good fit for what they want to do. I think for what they're going to expect out of him, I think that he'll be able to do that. I know some people don't think maybe Blake could even do what they're going to ask him to do, which is just basically, sometimes have to, guard small ball fives or, have to stretch the floor because obviously, again, Blake can shoot the three. That opens up the floor for Kyrie and James to get into the paint, potentially kick it out. I think, in terms of name value, that's why we look at him and think, oh, Blake Griffin. But in terms of the actual player he is and then the actual fit on the team, I think that's just as good. I think it works for what they want to do because of the offense they run. Because before it was Jeff Green, and Jeff Green is 6'7", 6'8", kind of more of a 4 than a 5, even a 3 in some situations. Blake Griffin's a bit bigger, so he can maybe match up better. He's never been a great defensive player, so not anybody stretch your imagination he's going to be shutting nobody down. But I just think maybe he can be more of a more natural fit in that spot, and I think Blake Griffin can do a lot of good things for that team.
Yeah, definitely. Blake Griffin, I think to me, coming off the bench is going to be good for them. The Nets should definitely keep starting. Bruce Brown, who's had a great year. All the attention seems to go to Harden and Irvin, but this guy Bruce Brown is a very athletic guy. He plays good defense. He could get to the rim. He's out of the University of Miami, so it's good to see a Hurricane basketball player in the NBA doing his thing. But yeah, Blake Griffin off the bench seems like a good move. That they won't have to play him too many minutes. They could kind of monitor his minutes. I don't think Blake Griffin's like a top guy in the league anymore. He's more of a guy off the bench, and obviously you got to worry about him getting hurt as well. I think another reason him going to Brooklyn was he and DeAndre Jordan were old teammates with the Clippers, so I'm sure DeAndre Jordan kind of got in his ear and told him, come to Brooklyn. So that's another thing. Another reason why he definitely went to the Nets. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But some other guys, it could be on the move shortly, or Andre Drummond and LaMarcus Aldridge. The Spurs and LaMarcus Aldridge agreed to part ways just before the game Thursday night against the Dallas Mavericks. So the Spurs are looking for trade partners to trade LaMarcus Aldridge. I want to get your thoughts on him and Andre Drummond. Where do you think these two guys might end up and be good fits for? What teams?
Well, starting with LaMarcus, he's kind of like, he's not like completely like Blake, but at this point in his career, he's a little bit older, a little bit more on the back, really more on the back end, but a guy who can still contribute. Veteran guy, smart guy, good leadership. We know him as a jump shooter his entire career. He can still do that. I think Portland is welcome to having him back. We've heard Damian Lillard made a statement talking about, not recently, I can't remember when, but he made a statement saying he wouldn't mind having LaMarcus Aldridge back in Portland. Potentially maybe a Golden State, potentially, any team that needs. Again, I think LaMarcus is going to be a bench guy because I think that'd be best for him. And I think that for what he can still do in his career, if you can get 10 to 15 points out of him, which he can give you, I think he'll be a great addition to any championship team that maybe want to make that extra step. Again, he's not a great defensive player, so if you bring him in, it's not for defensive purposes. It's more for the veteran leadership and the fact that he can come in and get you buckets in spurts in the game. And I think that's important to any team when you can have that depth, especially now in today's NBA, because you never know. COVID is still going to be a thing, probably going into the playoffs. What if maybe the guy in front of him protocol happens? You need a guy who you can at least say, I can kind of trust LaMarcus Aldridge. He's been in these big moments. He's played in big games. He's played for really good teams. So it's not like this is new to him. He can carry the ship or at least hold it down till whoever gets back from injury or COVID-related issues. And I think, any team in that championship window could use him. Now, Andre Drummond, I think the two teams that obviously stand out are the Lakers because Marc Gasol has not really panned out the way people have thought he would pan out. He definitely looks like he's at the end of his career. He's not that great defensively. He's not giving him that offensive production. And that's one thing, again, LaMarcus can still do is score the ball. And then the Brooklyn Nets. Just because if they bring in a Drummond, that's more for, okay, if we play the 76ers, we need Drummond. Because you're not going to really sit here and say, okay, Blake, we need you to take Embiid one-on-one. We know who's going to win that matchup. At least Drummond is a bigger body, more of a natural center, and can pound a little bit more in the post with a guy like Embiid. Because, again, you're making these moves based on who we think we could play down the line. And I think that he would also be a good fit there as well. Because people forget, Andre Drummond is a walking double-double still, even at this point. It's not like this guy's like 35 and he's at the end of his career. He's still relatively young. He's just the prehistoric center. He's under the basket all the time. But again, so you probably won't play him, especially if you went to Brooklyn. You probably wouldn't play him a lot, but you would play him in the series that you need him. So those are the two teams to me that probably stand out to me. Maybe a Portland, maybe just because they never really replaced Whiteside, a big physical center, because Nurkic has come back from injury. He's more of a smaller guy. Zach Collins more of a smaller guy. So maybe potentially Portland could be another team in there as well. So those are the teams that stick out to me right now when it comes to Andre Drummond, but I definitely expect whatever team they go to, I expect them, depending on roles and fit, they can make an impact wherever they go.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. We'll definitely see what happens with those two guys. Andre Drummond is a guy that he's a good rebounder. He could give you a double-double. I could see the Lakers taking a chance on a guy like him being at the Lakers. In the offseason, lost Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. They had Marc Gasol, who hasn't really panned out, and Montrezl Harrell hasn't really panned out. Now, you were mentioning Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is going to be out for 2 weeks for Philly with a bone spur. So he's going to be out for 2 weeks. So you got to look for, Tobias Harris and Ben Simmons to carry the load. So it's going to be interesting to see if Dwight Howard can fill in during those 2 weeks for Embiid and really pick it up. I don't think we're going to see old Dwight Howard, but we'll see how he does. But moving forward, LaMarcus Aldridge going back to Portland, that would be definitely interesting. That's where he played most of his career, 9 seasons. That's where, he was in his prime. LaMarcus Aldridge is a guy that could post up, hit the fadeaway. He can also shoot threes. Not really a great defender, but that would be interesting to see him go to Portland to team up with Damian Lillard. And, if they're able to get CJ McCollum back healthy, add that with Carmelo and Derek Jones Jr., that Portland team is a nice team. They could be a tough team to face in the playoffs. Also, if the Heat, I'm a Heat fan, so, I'd like to see the Heat possibly, get either of these guys, Andre Drummond or LaMarcus Aldridge. Bam Adebayo has been dealing with some knee tendonitis right now. So I feel like the Heat need a big behind Bam just in case something were to happen to Bam. So getting either, LaMarcus Aldridge is better offensively. I think Drummond is better more defensively. But if the Heat were able to get either of these two guys, it would be a good fit behind Bam in case anything were to happen to Bam. But, I'm looking at this like, for the Heat and the Lakers and, some of these other teams that compete with Brooklyn because, Brooklyn put together the big three. Like if I'm the Lakers and the Heat, I would try to do whatever I can to try to get another scorer like a guy like a Bradley Beal. Now, I know Bradley Beal said like publicly, he's happy in Washington. He wants to stay there. He's just signed a big contract. But, LeBron likes him a lot. The Lakers would definitely trade for him. If I'm the Lakers or like the Heat, the Nets are kind of trying to like stack the deck here. Like, you're going to need like a third scorer. Like, nobody knows what's going to happen with Anthony Davis if he's going to be healthy the rest of the year with the Heat. With Bam. Bam's been kind of injury prone, and then Jimmy Butler as well. You kind of need like another guy because look at what the Brooklyn Nets are doing, and they don't even have Kevin Durant, who's considered their best player, even playing. Harden and Irvin on any given night could give you 30 or 40 points, and Durant's missing all these games. You can only imagine how good this Brooklyn team is going to be when Durant comes back. And they're just going to be like a scoring machine. They don't have to be the best defensive team. They just have to play situational defense. But Brooklyn. The thing is, when you get in the playoffs, like the game slows down. Referees don't call fouls as much. You have to play some type of defense in the playoffs. So the Nets are going to have to get a little bit better, defensively because James Harden and Kyrie Irving and Durant and some of these guys might not be getting all these foul calls like they are in the regular season. Because when you get to the playoffs, the game slows down, and you do have to play some type of defense in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens moving forward with that, with free agency and any potential trades. You got any predictions for the second half of the year for the NBA on who you like moving forward to get to the finals, or any playoff teams, favorites, dark horses, anything like that?
Not well. Actually, yes. For me in the Western Conference, the Phoenix Suns are a team that you have to look out for. Because if Chris Paul continues to play the way he's been playing, and Devin Booker continues to play the way we know he can play, and the DeAndre Ayton continues to make improvements and etc., I think the Suns are going to be a very tough out. Like, the Western Conference is very stacked on that top half this year to me. And everybody's trying to figure out what is Utah in that. Are they really as good as the top teams that we consider the top in the Western Conference or not? But I think Phoenix is the Suns are a team that you have to definitely look out for. I think they really have improved defensively, which has been big. And then, like I said, if Devin Booker has Devin Booker-like games and he has big games, I think he can keep the Suns in a lot of these games. And, one thing that I think Chris Paul brings to the table that a lot of people forget is that he's a great late game player. And remember, Oklahoma City last year, when he was Oklahoma City, was, I believe, in the top of the league in clutch points in the final 5 minutes of games as a team. So I think, when you're in those close playoff games, because I expect a lot of close playoff games, especially with the top teams when they compete, Chris Paul knows how to execute in these moments. And Devin Booker is one of the best offensive players in these moments. You probably don't want the ball in his hands in those moments. And Chris Paul's not afraid to make the right play. So I think the Phoenix Suns, to me, in the Western Conference are a team to watch out for. Eastern Conference-wise, not really in terms of a dark horse, in terms of making the playoffs. I feel like the Eastern Conference is kind of a two-team race. Maybe Milwaukee, depending on how they continue to play the rest of the year. But in terms of just the team making the playoffs, just watch out for the Atlanta Hawks. They're playing better right now. They've won 4 straight. They're not even fully healthy yet. Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter, 2 of their young players from last year's draft class, having played within the last couple of weeks because of injuries. So I definitely expect them to continue their rise up the Eastern Conference, because I think they're 2 games away from being, I think, the 4th seed, which basically tells you where the Eastern Conference is, because everybody after the first 3 teams are just munched up, below 500. So they're a team that, when they get fully healthy, I'm curious to see what they look like, because we have never seen this Hawks team fully healthy yet. And I know a lot of people have been very critical of Trae Young and, is how good is Trae Young, is Luka's better, and just all of that. And I think this is going to be his time and moment to kind of silence a lot of his doubters, have big games, and lead this team to the playoffs. And depending on matchups, potentially even winning a first round matchup would be huge.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. It's going to be interesting. The Western Conference, I look at it like right now, I'd have to say it's 4 teams. Obviously, the Lakers being the defending champions. You got to throw in the Utah Jazz. Utah Jazz playing great team ball, led by Donovan Mitchell, who's having a great year. Also, Rudy Gobert, who's a premier defender. The Utah Jazz team is really playing great team ball. They kind of remind me of what the Nuggets are. I mean, what the Nuggets were, last year. This is a team that could definitely get to the Western Conference Finals, and if they play the Lakers or the Clippers, definitely give either of those 2 teams a run for their money. But they definitely remind me of the Nuggets last year. The Nuggets are another team you got to throw in there too, because, they did get to the Western Conference Finals last year. So we'll see what happens with them. The Phoenix Suns, yes, they're definitely an interesting team led by Chris Paul. I just think they lack the experience to really go far, in the playoffs. They can definitely get to the playoffs, maybe make a competitive first-round series depending on who they play, maybe get out of the first round, but they just lack the experience. So in the West, I would say, it's the Utah Jazz, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Lakers, and, maybe the Nuggets. Those 4 teams have the best chance to come out of the West to get to the finals. Now,
what do you think about Portland?
Portland, yeah, it's another team. I forgot to mention Portland is another team. If they could get right and get healthy, Damian Lillard is a clutch time playoff performer. If he could get hot and going into the playoffs, and you get CJ McCollum, and like you said, if they're able to get LaMarcus Aldridge back there, and I'm not saying he's going to look like LaMarcus Aldridge, but if he can still give you what he did before, that's going to be a tough team. And you have good veterans like Carmelo Anthony, and you had a Derrick Jones Jr., who's a good defender, and also Gary Trent Jr., who can play. Portland could be a tough out too. But I'm looking at like this year, the Clippers, like it looked so bad in the bubble last year, losing to Denver, being up 3-1. I kind of question this team's leadership, with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Like, can these guys get it done in the playoffs. They have all the talent in the world. They're a great defensive team. Paul George is a great defender. Kawhi Leonard's a great defender. I'm not sure if Kawhi is that much of a leader. Like, he's not a vocal guy. He's kind of like a quiet guy. They lose Doc Rivers, their head coach, who's kind of like a vocal head coach. They got Tyronn Lue, who's a good coach, but I don't know. The Clippers, I just don't trust them in the playoffs. I don't know. I'm not saying they can't get to the finals. I mean, everybody last year thought it was going to be Clippers and Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. I was one of them. I don't know how they blew that 3-1 lead to Denver. They just completely collapsed. Maybe they didn't want to be there in the bubble. I don't know. Hopefully the Clippers, do better this year. They're always going to be in the Lakers' shadow until they can, win a championship. They're always going to be the second team in LA. Nobody's going to ever say anything good about them. So we'll see what happens. But the Clippers, they have all the talent in the world. They just have to put it together and just be able to win in the playoffs and just perform in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. But the West is definitely going to be interesting. Looking at the East, I think it's pretty much Brooklyn and everybody else. I mean, you can't forget about my Miami Heat, the defending Eastern Conference champions. We'll see if we can add anybody to the team, because I think pretty much everybody else in the East is just trying to compete with Brooklyn, or just seeing how they match up with Brooklyn. Because once Brooklyn gets Durant back, how are you going to be able to stop Harden, Durant, or Irvin on any given night? Because any of these guys on any given night can drop 30 or 40 on you. So, and how are we going to be able to stop these guys? So that's the big thing, And then Philadelphia, their big thing is Joel Embiid, has to stay healthy. If he can stay healthy going into the playoffs, they're a good team. They have a great coach in Doc Rivers. You also have to mention Milwaukee. We'll see how far Giannis has come. He's worked on his game in the offseason. We'll see if he can play in the playoffs and be able to shoot the three and shoot the jump shot, see how they do in the playoffs. You definitely can't forget about Boston either. Boston is a very well-coached team, with Brad Stevens. They have a terrific two with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Add Kemba Walker to that mix, and Marcus Smart, as well as Tice. They have a good team as well. So we'll see. But I would say in the East, Brooklyn is the favorites, the clear-cut favorites in the East. But any of those teams I mentioned, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Miami, you can't forget about Indiana. Any of those teams could definitely give Brooklyn a run for the money. The playoffs really all depend on matchups and how you're playing towards the end of the year. I look at a team like the Lakers. They don't really need to worry about getting the 1 seed or anything like that. The main thing for the Lakers is just being healthy going into the playoffs, like having a healthy Anthony Davis, having a healthy LeBron James, having everybody fresh on the same page. They don't really need to worry about the home court advantage. I look at a team like the Utah Jazz. They want the home court advantage, the 1 seed, because Utah is just such a tough place to play in the playoffs. But these teams that are more veteran savvy teams, I don't really think they care as much about having home court or not. So I mean, we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting second half of the year, and we'll see what teams make it to the playoffs and can get to the finals. Yeah, that's pretty much it for today's show. Brice, again, I want to thank you for coming on. Before I let you go, I know you work for Sideline Sports Network. You want to tell everybody out there where they can find you, or what you have coming up as far as any work you're doing, where anybody can find you, like your own podcast, your writing, social media, anything like that? Where can people check you out? We'll definitely be sure to have you on the show again. And if you're doing any shows, I'll definitely like to come on your show anytime. So, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Brice_2K. That's my main Twitter right now. I have a podcast called the Sport Jam Podcast. Currently, we've been going through some technical difficulties, which is why I haven't dropped the episode in a minute, but we should be coming back this week for NFL free agency. So it's on my YouTube at Brice Lewis, if you can subscribe to me on YouTube. Also, I have 2 shows for the Atlanta Hawks and the Atlanta Falcons, where I cover them for fan media. You can definitely, again, YouTube at Brice Lewis. It's also on all my social media, on my Facebook, Brice Lewis, any of that. And Robert, I really appreciate coming on to the show today, man, and definitely love to be back sometime.
Thanks again, man. Everybody out there, have a good rest of your weekend. Happy Sunday. Oh, before I let you go, man, we got Selection Sunday coming up for the NCAA tournament. Obviously, it's been a kind of a weird year for the NCAA tournament with all the COVID stuff. We're not going to have all the normal blue bloods in the tournament, like maybe Kansas, Kentucky, North Carolina. What sleeper team could you see like making some noise in this NCAA tournament? It's going to be kind of interesting tournament this year. I just hope they're able to to get through the tournament without any COVID stuff affecting it. What team could you see making some noise in the tournament this year?
You know, it was kind of weird. I don't really know if I have a particular team, but I will say that I think this is definitely a year where you can maybe see a lot more upsets. And not because, a team's going to beat another team just because. But remember, COVID's still a thing. You know, when you fill out your bracket, you have to kind of hope, hey, if I pick this team, I hope they don't get COVID or else they're out. But if I had to maybe give a team potentially look out for Georgia Tech out of the ACC. They just won the ACC championship, beating Florida State the other night. They are a team that's kind of surprised people in the ACC this year. I don't know, people thought Georgia Tech would be as good as they are. You know, like I said, all it takes is getting that right, bracket, right side of the bracket, getting the right matchups. So it'll be interesting depending on where they land and what seed they get. They might be a team that might be able to make some noise as an unexpected Cinderella team.
Definitely, I agree with you there. Two teams I'm definitely rooting for are Michigan and Georgetown. It's been a long time since Michigan won the national championship. They got Juwan Howard as the head coach. That Fab Five, I like to see Michigan get to the national championship game, possibly win it. Another team I'm rooting for is Georgetown. Good to see Georgetown, back in the tournament, coached by Patrick Ewing. Hopefully they have a nice run. We'll see what happens. We're only 30 minutes away here from the selection special on CBS, so we'll see all the matchups of the NCAA tournament. Again, I want to thank everybody out there for tuning in to episode 10 of the Diamonds in the Rough podcast. I'm your host, Robert Big Shot Rob Stripe. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for my next episode 10 next week. Again, Brice, thank you for coming on the show, my man. We'll definitely be in touch. Definitely have you on again, and I'll definitely check you out on your show and definitely look forward to working with you again. Have a good rest of your day, my man. Have a good weekend. Everybody out there, happy Sunday. Have a good weekend. Stay safe and take care of yourselves.
Yes, sir.